For many garages and shops, a ductless mini split is the perfect solution, providing air conditioning and optionally heat to your space. In this video, we'll go over how to install a DIY mini split on your own, but keep in mind to check local building codes and permits before you start the project. A ductless mini split has two main parts: the condensing unit, which is mounted outside, and the evaporator unit, which is mounted inside. Power is run from your electrical panel to the outside unit. Wires are run from the outside unit to the inside unit for both power and communication between the units. There are also two copper tubes that connect the units. When the outside unit is powered up, the compressor forces the refrigerant into the smaller copper tube toward the inside unit. Inside the inside unit is an expansion valve. It's the connection between the smaller copper tube to the larger tube. This expansion valve has a small hole in it where the pressurized refrigerant is forced through. That is the location where physics happens. The release of the pressurized refrigerant absorbs heat and you get cold air. The larger copper tube then collects the refrigerant and feeds it back to the compressor outside to start the process over again. If you have ever taken a can of compressed air, turned it upside down, and pressed the spray button, you know it comes out freezing cold. That's how this all works. And for the heater, it's the same thing, just in reverse. Also understand, the heat from a mini split doesn't work after the outside temperature gets around -10 degrees Fahrenheit. It varies depending on which unit you are installing, so you'll want to check the specs if it gets really cold where you live. Before we dive into the instructional steps, we should point out a few of the more involved aspects that may be a limiting factor for some DIYers. First, only the smallest unit will use 115-volt power and needs 19 amps of current. All the other units use 220-volt power. The smallest unit will suit a standard 2-car garage with up to 500 square feet of floor space and an 8-foot ceiling height. Any space larger than that will need 220-volt service to accommodate a larger split unit. And all units should have their own dedicated circuit. Second, you will need to cut a large hole through the wall to the outside. For shops and garages with wood frames and siding, that's not very hard. But if you have concrete or brick walls, that's a lot more complicated to cut through. Third, you'll want to purchase some tools for the installation if you don't already own them. You may be able to complete the installation without them, but you'll save yourself headaches with the proper tools. A torque wrench with an open end or adjustable head takes the guesswork out of tightening the copper tube fittings. A hammer drill with masonry drill bits lets you set anchors in concrete. A 3.5-inch core drill bit for either wood or concrete, depending on your walls, to connect the lines to the inside and outside units. You'll also need more common tools: open-end wrenches, screwdrivers, level, spray bottle with soapy water, and a ladder. You will not need a vacuum pump with these DIY systems, because the lines come pre-charged with refrigerant. Before beginning installation, make sure you were delivered the correct matching units. Look at the label on the product boxes to make sure the indoor and outdoor units are a match. Start with choosing a location for the indoor unit. Figure out the best location for the indoor unit, taking into account a few factors. You're going to be cutting a 3.5-inch hole into the wall that needs to go outside. This hole will be hidden behind the bottom right corner of the inside unit as you look at it hanging on the wall. You'll also want it mounted in a spot that provides good air circulation and has a strong mounting point that won't vibrate. It needs to be at least 3 feet away from other electronic devices like TVs and computers. It should not be near any source of heat or steam or near anything flammable. Also, don't mount it by a doorway where outside air may blow on it, or a location where it would get direct sunlight, because the fluctuations in temperature may confuse the thermostat. Check the instruction manual for minimum clearances on each side and height recommendations depending on your ceiling height. Next, we'll attach the wall mounting plate. Once you have decided on a location, using the included cardboard template and a level, mark off the spots for where the mounting plate will anchor and where the hole to the outside will be cut. You can do this with a screwdriver to puncture through the cardboard and mark the wall. It's important that the mounting plate is level so that the water drains properly. For wood-framed garages, you will also ideally have the mounting plate anchor into studs, and the outside hole should avoid being cut through a stud. Standard wall studs that are 16 inches on center line up with the holes marked US on the template. So once you center the first US hole to one stud, the next stud should line up at the other hole marked US on the template. You can remove the mounting plate from the back of the indoor unit. It's held on by a screw for shipping purposes. If you have wood studs, mount the plate to the wall with the supplied screws. If you have a concrete wall, drill 1/4 inch diameter holes in the wall, insert the provided sleeve anchors in the holes, and mount the plate by tightening the screws into these anchors. Next, attach a 3½ inch core drill bit to your drill, and drill a hole through the wall at the location you marked from the template. Drill the hole, so there is about a 1/4 inch slope going down to the outside to make sure things drain well. Once you've finished cutting the hole, insert the supplied protective sleeve through the wall from the inside going out. Now go outside and mark where to trim the sleeve to make it flush with the wall. Trim the excess with a utility knife or a saw. This sleeve helps protect the wall and helps seal the opening once you've run the wires and tubing through it. There are 2 copper refrigerant lines and a water drain line wrapped in insulation already attached to the indoor unit. Look at the back bottom of the indoor unit to locate them. These lines will need to be gently bent so that they pass through the sleeve to the outside. Grip the piping at the base where they connect to the unit, and slowly and evenly bend the pipes so they are at a 90-degree angle sticking straight out the back of the unit. Be extremely careful not to dent or damage the piping while bending it. Now take some electrical tape and lightly tape the lines together. Make sure the drain pipe runs along the bottom and not twisted up so that it will drain properly. The tape will help keep things organized as you feed the pipes through the sleeve. Don't use any tape on the ends of the pipes. Start by double-checking that the copper refrigerant lines are still capped at the ends to prevent any debris from getting in the lines. Now locate the master control cable that is wrapped in flexible conduit and connected to the back of the indoor unit. Start by feeding the control cable through the wall hole. Next, carefully lift the indoor unit and feed the refrigerant and drain lines through the wall hole while lining up the unit to hook onto the wall mounting plate. Slightly lean the top of the unit toward the wall and hook the top of the indoor unit on the upper hook of the wall mounting plate. Check that the unit is hooked firmly on the mounting plate by applying slight pressure to the left and right-hand sides of the unit. The unit should not jiggle or shift. Using even pressure, push down on the bottom half of the unit. Continue pushing down until the unit snaps onto the hooks along the bottom of the mounting plate. Again, check that the unit is firmly mounted to the wall bracket by applying slight pressure to the left and right-hand sides of the unit. Now let's choose a location for the outdoor unit. The outdoor unit has a compressor inside that gets very hot when it converts the refrigerant from a gas into a pressurized liquid. The pressurized refrigerant also gets hot from this process. The outdoor unit passes the refrigerant through a radiator that has a large fan blowing across it to reduce the heat of the pressurized refrigerant before it travels through the copper line to the indoor unit. So that it has enough air to circulate and cool off, the outdoor unit has minimum clearances on each side of the unit. The clearances needed are different depending on the size of the mini-split unit you are installing, so make sure to check the installation manual for the correct clearances. You can either mount the outdoor unit to a concrete pad on the ground, or you can hang it from the wall if the wall is made from solid brick or concrete. In either case, you need a solid mounting location that can support the unit without vibrating. For wall mounting, the wall needs to be able to support at least 4 times the weight of the unit, and you will need to purchase additional wall mounting brackets. Also be mindful that the outdoor unit makes noise when it's on, so put it in a location where it won't disturb others. Don't mount it in a location where the heat could cause problems for things like your pets or a garden. You don't want to put it near any type of combustible gas, and it's best if you can keep it somewhat protected from the weather. Whether you choose to mount the outdoor unit to a concrete pad or to the wall, you will need to anchor it well so that it does not vibrate loose. You also want to mount it to a level surface, which is especially important when drilling for wall mounting. You'll likely be setting expansion bolts or another suitable anchor into concrete. This is done by drilling a hole with a hammer drill, clearing the dust, then setting the anchors. Once the mounting location has been prepared, You will mount the outdoor unit using the included rubber feet, which will help reduce vibration noise. Before you connect the lines, remember to first install the finishing ring cap to the wall hole sleeve. Then place your hand close to the wall on the underside of the lines coming through the exterior wall hole. Using even pressure with your other hand, carefully bend the piping downward, making sure not to damage the copper lines. You want to make an even curve in the lines with a minimum of a 4-inch bend. Do not kink them. Once bent into position, use the supplied neoprene or spray foam to seal the hole. Now unwind the supplied Quick Connect copper line set so that you have a straight line of tubing going from the ends of the inside unit lines to the outside unit. Leave any excess tube length coiled as is. Be careful not to excessively bend the tubing, so not to risk breaking it. You do not want to move on to this step if there is any rain in the forecast. You also should wear gloves and eye protection in case of any refrigerant leaks. Make sure both the ends of the indoor unit lines and the ends of the line set are free of any dirt or debris. These connections will be under a lot of pressure, and you don't want them leaking. Over or under tightening the fittings can result in leaks, and the patented fittings are designed to only be installed once. Do not add any thread sealant, like Teflon tape, as this will actually cause a leak over time. It's best to use a torque wrench with an open end or adjustable head to connect the tubes. This takes out any guesswork. There is a size stamp on the coupler, which corresponds to the manual for the correct torque setting. Do not remove the plastic seals of the piping coming from the indoor unit or the line set until immediately before they are going to be connected. The plastic seals on each of the connectors should be color-coded to match the seals of the corresponding pipes they are to be connected to. Align the refrigerant lines. Unscrew the seals. Then place the screw connector of the line set onto the threads of the piping from the indoor unit. Tighten the first few threads by hand. Now use an open-end wrench and open-end torque wrench to tighten the fittings to the correct torque. Do this to both lines so that the indoor unit is now connected to the line set. Finally, connect the drain hose extension. Now unscrew the water tray on the outdoor unit, which will expose the refrigerant line connections. Carefully bend the ends of the copper lines so they align with the connections on the outdoor unit. Make sure to bend the lines so that there is as little stress as possible on the fitting. The lines should be in line with the angle of the fitting. Leave any excess copper line coiled and stored behind the outdoor unit. Finally, repeat the steps of ensuring everything is clean, uncapping the ends, hand tightening the fittings, and torquing them to the correct specifications. The outdoor unit comes pre-charged with refrigerant. Now that you have all the lines connected, it's time to release the refrigerant into the lines and indoor unit. Remove the outdoor facing caps on the valves where you just connected the lines to the outdoor unit. Inside the caps are valves. Using a 5mm Allen key, turn the upper valve counterclockwise until it stops. Do not force it. Repeat the same process on the lower valve. You will hear the pressure being released from the outdoor unit into the rest of the system when you open these valves. Now, using a spray bottle with soapy water, wet all the copper line connections, checking for any bubbles that would indicate leaks. If any leaks are present, tighten that connection and recheck it. Then screw the caps back on. The electrical circuit for the split unit should be on its own individual branch. A qualified technician must use an approved circuit breaker and AC disconnect. Building codes normally require that an external disconnect box be installed near the condensing unit located outside of the building. This box will allow the power to be cut to the outside unit without entering the building. Remember, all wiring must comply with local and national electrical codes and regulations. And before you start wiring, make sure the power is off. Remove the screws from the wiring cover on the outdoor unit. Remove the retaining nut from the master control conduit that you fed through the wall from the inside unit. Feed the wires through the hole in the cover and secure the conduit with the retaining nut. Connect the corresponding labeled wires, 1, 2, and 3, to the labeled terminals on the outdoor unit. And connect the green ground wire to the bottom screw of the terminal block. The power needed for the 12 kBtu split unit is 115 volts. All other larger units use 230 volts. The difference is for 115 volts, you will have one live wire labeled L on the power block, and one neutral wire labeled N. For 230 volts, you will have two live wires labeled L1 and L2. The rest of the wiring will be the same. Choose another knockout hole in the electrical cover to feed your power conduit through and connect the power and ground wires. Finally, reinstall the electrical wiring cover. Now it's time for a test run. Turn on the power to the mini split unit. Press the on button on the remote. Press the mode button and scroll through the functions until you get to cool. Select the coldest possible temperature and run the unit for 5 minutes. Check the copper line connections for leaks with soapy water while the unit is operating. Then change the mode to the heat, select the highest possible temperature and run the unit for 5 minutes. Again, check the copper lines for leaks. If no leaks are present, it's time to wrap the lines. Start by wrapping the connectors from the indoor unit with the supplied sound deadening pads. Next, put the supplied insulation material over the connectors and exposed refrigerant piping. Now, using the non-adhesive UV tape, start where the connection is made to the inside unit that is not covered and wrap the lines. Congratulations! You have successfully installed a mini split unit. Now you can enjoy your garage during the hot summer months with air conditioning and stay warm in the winter with heat. If you have any questions, give Car Guy Garage a call at 800-736-9308 or email sales@carguygarage.com. Car Guy Garage carries thousands of products for your garage at carguygarage.com. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.